I think that was a very interesting takeaway for all those who are considering going cross-border and opening businesses outside India. Uh, so that's the new Bharat, which is confident, bold, and inclusive. I would request all of you to again take your seats, and because we have a lot of power-packed session going forward, we started the morning with you know sports powering the digital India, and now we had the session of navigating cross-border expansion strategies. We will soon have very interesting sessions coming up, like for startups to scale up, unlocking the growth. And soon after that, we will have the most important session uh, with Share the Stage with the legendary entrepreneur Deep Karla. So I am sure for this to attend, become a part of the Share the Stage, you would have dropped your visiting card or business card in the box outside the hall, and you definitely get a chance to be in the stage with the legendary entrepreneur. At this point, I would remind all of you to be a part of TiE Delhi and become a member. We would like to thank SAP and AI Track partner PIC XB for supporting this session. I would also like to share at this point in that SAP is an important partner for this event, and they have been empowering and uh, accelerating the growth of startups and scale-ups. If you have something, if you are interested to make your startup to scale up, please go and visit the stall they have here, somewhere here. You can see how they can help you to procure and empower your procurement. You can also see how they can help you to unlock your potential of your startup and enrich the journey of your startup to scale up. They have a booth here. Definitely make sure that you visit that booth. Moving on to the New Bharat session today, we are going to have the very special session from startup to scale up, unlocking the growth. That's again the New Bharat we are talking about, which is confident, bold, and inclusive. May I take the opportunity to invite on stage uh, Akshay Ghulati, co-founder, strategy and global expansion, Shiprocket. I'd like to invite Naman, co-founder of magicpin, on stage. And then Mr. Rahul Tewari, chief financial advisor of Games 24/7. Can I have the speakers on stage? While the speakers are joining on the stage, let me again share with you, don't miss this opportunity of sharing the stage with the legendary entrepreneur. So therefore, please drop your visiting cards outside this hall in the box. I think the speakers are here. Let us put our hand together to invite Akshay Ghulati, co-founder, strategy and expansion, Shiprocket. I would also like to invite Naman, co-founder, magicpin. May we have the round of applause. Mr. Rahul Tewari, Chief Finance Officer, Game 24/7. I'd like to invite Sudakshina Ghosh, Senior Director, Customer Advisory Practice, Unicorn and Digital Native, SAP India Subcontinent, to chair this session. Over to you, Sudakshina.
Hello. Thank you so much, and thank you for waiting. We got to know that the session is running a little early. So a very warm welcome to my co-panelists, Akshay, Naman, and Rahul. Thank you so much for making time to be here today. So the thing that we wanted to discuss today in this panel is from startup to scale up, right? So that is, and all of you have really been changing the way your companies really function within established industries. So let us just understand a little bit, your journeys from startup to scale up, how it has been, what has been your experience. So if we can start with you, Akshay, and then Naman, and then Rahul, yeah?
Okay, I think it's been an 8-year journey for us now that we've been doing Shiprocket, and 12 years that we've been in the SME ecosystem in India. And I think the journey itself has been, it's been a huge learning opportunity even today, because I think we're still in the scale-up phase. We're not even scratching the surface when it comes to online commerce. Online commerce itself is changing. In 2017, when we started, no one was talking about 15-minute delivery. No one was talking about quick commerce. Today, most media publications first are talking about quick commerce and then about e-commerce. So I think the landscape itself has rapidly evolved. And I think that's one of the big challenges that we've learned is, it doesn't matter what you disrupted 6, 7 years ago. You have to disrupt yourself every year in the scale-up phase. I think the startup phase for us to an extent is solved because we have a great team. And I think that was the biggest challenge in the startup phase, is building a team of people that can help you scale up. And it takes time, it takes money, and it takes a lot of iterations because you need people to believe in that vision. Today, when we think about Shiprocket, outside of the founders, I think everyone in the leadership team is the equivalent of a founder because they believe in the vision and they've been through so many iterations of our scale up that they understand. So I think that's been one of the biggest learnings, is that getting the right team in place. We're going to change. 5 years from now, Shiprocket will be very different from what it was 5 years ago and where it is today. And I think that's the key learning that I have, that in a scale up, you're scaling up to a different end goal every 2 to 3 years.
Thanks so much, Akshay. I think the two key takeaways for me is definitely one is building the team and also reinventing in terms of what Shiprocket is and what your offerings are, every few years, right? So I'll come back to you in terms of, how you're leveraging technology, data, etc. But over to you, Naman. How have you started off with magicpin and where you are in your scale-up journey today?
Sure. So hi, I'm Naman. I'm the co-founder of magicpin. We started magicpin now 8 years back. The idea behind magicpin was that the offline retail market in India is very huge. The retail market in itself is $1 trillion market across categories, but the offline market was 95%, even today is 92%. While there's a lot of talk about online, our thesis was the offline market is huge and will continue to be growing and large in the future. The other interesting trend that we had picked on was smartphones were picking up, right? There's a lot of consumption of content online that users had started to do. And in addition to that, payments were starting to pick up. UPI had not yet come in, but payments were starting to pick up online. And as a result, users wanted to discover online, right, to see what's around them. And the problem that retailers were facing is that they didn't have a way to reach out to the catchment of users around them, right? So the consumer wanted to discover what's around them. The retailer wanted to reach out to that user, but there was no platform that was able to do that in an efficient way. So that was a big opportunity that we identified, and we started magicpin as a platform that connects, using its data and technology, the retailer and the consumer, right? The way the platform works is that we light up the local market in a user's smartphone, right? So you can see in a nearby store, which is, let's say, in a 100-meter distance, you can see if you want a biryani or a momo or a croissant or a white linen shirt or a television, you can sit at the comfort of your home and actually see if there's a store nearby that has any of these products, right? So we bring the nearby local store live in a user's smartphone, and they can discover all of these very interesting products and SKUs in a mobile browsing experience. Now, in addition, what we've done is that the user can go to these stores, and in addition to the savings that's available in the store, the offers that are running, when they use magicpin, they'll get extra savings. So for a user, we provide discovery as well as savings. From a retailer point of view, because we know these users very well, we're able to target and remarket to them and get them to the retailer, right? And the retailer doesn't need to pay us for cost per click or cost per impression, which is typical in the online world. For the offline world, we've built a model which is cost per conversion, right? And that's very, very powerful. Think of a small retailer, let's say a pharmacy store in Lajpat Nagar, who wants to reach their catchment. They don't have many options to reach that catchment, right? Maybe at best they'd do a newspaper leaflet, which no one looks at, or they'd do Google, Facebook, which is expensive, don't have a ROI associated. They don't have access to radio and a TV. That's too expensive for them. So a model that allows them to pay for conversion is what we built for a retailer. And that's been incredible because today we do close to $3 billion of GMV. We have 2.5 lakh retail partners We work with some of the largest retailers from Shoppers Stop to Lifestyle to McDonald's to KFC to Chroma and 250,000 small retailers. We have more than 1.5 crore users across markets, and we continue to scale that base as we've scaled the model.
Great. I mean, I do believe that that's a very, very interesting idea. In the e-commerce world or consumer tech world, right, we find we've seen a lot of innovation happening in terms of using technology first to come up with a solution to lots of gaps. But here we are taking the vibrant ecosystem of entrepreneurs that already exists and giving them, a new totally innovative channel, recommendation-led channel of going to market, right? So I think it's a very interesting idea. Over to you, Rahul. Let us hear your story of building games 24/7 in an industry which is not only innovative, but also is always beset with a lot of regulatory sort of, I say, focus. But we can talk about the regulation in the next segment. But here you can talk about, your journey a little bit with Games 24/7.
Sure. So Games 24/7 today is India's largest multi-gaming platform. We have industry-leading brands in skill gaming like Rummy Circle and My 11 Circle. But the story really starts like 17 years back, and it's an interesting time to start a digital business because just the term startup did not exist the way it is perceived today. So we grew in a climate of extreme scarcity. I mean, the kind of capital which is available to platforms did not exist at that point in time. And those are defining years for the company because, we learned to manage our operations in a very ROI-driven way. And that has been the guiding principle overall. If you kind of, think about what is the operating ethos that kind of has led to the success of the platform is really the science of gaming. And that is an obsession. It's the culture that we built. And that kind of, guides the product innovation in the company. It kind of defines how we acquire customers. It also kind of, defines the financial profile of the company. So we are an industry that is disrupting digital consumption. And the content side of the industry has not been a great experience for a lot of players. And we have disrupted that because of this entire scientific way of operating. And that's where I think where we enjoy kind of running business is how we can learn from our users and hyper-personalize their experience. It's a product that improves with every data that we capture and kind of the insight that we develop. And today, it's a very sophisticated engine that is driven by a lot of self-learning data models that define the experience for our players. But when it was born, all of this was not very clear. But the obsession with the product, the data-driven mentality is kind of something which has helped us scale while we still kind of feel that these are early days for gaming in India.
Thank you so much, Rahul. And I do, when I was reading up about Games 24/7 and your approach, the scientific approach to gaming and how you're leveraging data and technology to really make this an overall fun and engaging experience for so many 120 plus players you have on your platform, right? So it has to be fun and engaging for them, right? So yeah. So next, my question to you is, how are you leveraging data science to really change this experience of gaming for your players? And also, since this is an industry where regulation tends to change, for example, the 28% tax levy that we were talking about of GST, right? How do you ensure that business model remains agile while you are also being compliant, right? In a fast-changing environment, both in terms of what users demand, in terms of their experience, and also what the regulators demand.
So I think the tech stack which has been built over years that we've invested in really focuses on developing a thesis around customer behavior on the platform. And most of the gaming companies are obsessed with data, but I think we have defined that as the operating ethos within Games 24/7. And the way it works on the ground is we have a very active experimentation culture, which relies on the teams. It could be a product team or a marketing team, But the decision making is not driven by, let's say, gut or intuition. It is very much focused on some data science model that is guiding decision making. And that is very hard to change as a culture because, new people come in, and then, we have to make sure that they get ingrained in the data way of, thinking. So I think eventually where it is impacting the business is, right from when we acquire a user, depending upon their consumption pattern, and it could be like, D7, D30 consumption pattern, we are able to predict their behavior over the next 5 years. So in a content business, retention is very, very important. And if we are able to predict the behavior of the customer on the platform, we are able to then make sure that the marketing spends are also optimized. And we kind of, acquiring high value customers that stay on the platform and give us that lifetime value, which is leading to the monetization and eventually to profitability. So that is very important. Now coming to the regulatory part, which I think is grabbing a lot of media headlines, yes. I think as a culture, we have seen a lot of adversity. And this is not the first time. It's obviously a very deep one. But I think the product has responded to this change. So good news here is that we are not changing the GST burden for the users. We are absorbing that as a platform. Fully, entirely. So we don't want that consumption pattern that I was talking about in gaming to change. And the way we are doing this is by hyper-personalizing the journey again. And then kind of, tweaking the journey for the players on the withdrawal side. I mean, there's a lot of technicality, but I think what defines monetization today is if people can keep the currency within the ecosystem and not withdraw cash. So these are small nudges that are embedded in the customer journey today, which minimize the tax burden for us. So I think whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And this is, we are hoping, is that kind of an experience. One thing which has also become important is there is clarity on taxation. We are an industry that had been very vocal about, bring regulation on us, define taxation for us. And finally, the government has spoken. We are hoping that through this evolution, there'll be more clarity on the regulatory side, which is the next, maybe the barrier for us to cross. But there have been good discussions on multiple fronts with the policymakers and the regulators. So we are hoping that eventually this will all be past us, and this is a very large space. We have 400 million gamers in the country today. It's growing at like 40%. So eventually the long-term story stays very much intact, but we'll learn to live with a very different set of unit economics overall.
For me personally, Rahul, this is very inspiring. It's a very, very positive attitude to look at the way things are evolving in this industry, and it's a true story of resilience that you have still continued to focus on content and focus on that experience for the gamers, and make it worth their time to spend their time on that platform. So very, very inspiring story, Rahul. Thank you for sharing that with us. Akshay, I'll come to you now. Again, another industry where you are giving that channel to a lot of digital-first brands, a lot of SMBs to reach out and serve markets, new markets for them, right? And you are that very critical order fulfillment backbone, which they would not have access to, and they are competing based on their product and their value proposition with the very large and mega e-commerce players, right? So it is very interesting, the business model that you came up with and the focus on offering the right product and the right value-added services to these customers. However, it's also an industry that is defined by uncertainty of demand. You can never really predict. And also this ever growing expectation around service delivery lead times, right? So how are you using data technology to shape these processes for Shiprocket? And and how do you see this evolving, your strategy and your offerings evolving in the future?
Absolutely, thank you. And I think we're sort of in a unique position that we're working in an industry that was It was not so much about, big data, Gen AI, all of this stuff. About 7 years ago when we started, it was an industry that was moving from pen and paper to digitization. So we were working with SMEs, that's our core business, helping them ship online. And in the past, these guys used to go to a franchise store in their local market. They used to give a shipment and they used to get an airway bill number written on a piece of paper, which they then had to go and WhatsApp or text to their customer. So the starting point for us in terms of the industry that we're working in was more about first digitizing SMEs, and then obviously a lot has evolved since then. I think specifically to your question around, how do we work in an environment where demand and supply is so uncertain, I think, big data has been the key for us there. At the end of the day, especially for SMEs, if you're a large merchant, you have hundreds of thousands of units of an item in stock, it's easier to kind of take into your stride the uncertainty in demand. But if you're an SME, you want to deliver your products in 2 to 3 days, you don't have the ability to store your goods in like 20, 30 locations across India. At most, you can probably do 2 or 3 warehouses. And I think demand pattern forecasting has been essential for us to be able to go to our customers. We work backwards from what their intent is, right? If a customer says, I want to be able to serve 90% of my demand in same day, next day, they probably need 6 to 7 warehouses across India to be able to do it. It's just not physically possible to transport goods within 24 to 48 hours otherwise. With most customers we work in, they have a 3 to 5 day timeline for being able to do 90% of their deliveries. 70% they want to do same day, next day. And usually with 2 to 3 warehouses in strategic locations across India, you're able to cater to that. And that's what we've done. We've been able to bring this certainty of demand planning to smaller merchants who don't have that large inventory pattern. And it also reduces the cost burden because obviously the more consolidated your inventory is, it's easier to manage. You have lower stockouts. Lots of problems that you wouldn't normally face if you were just selling on a marketplace. So I think big data has been really, really critical for us the first few years of our existence. And now with Gen AI coming into place, I think it's been a complete game changer. The kind of catalog content that you're seeing an SME based in a tier 2, tier 3 town be able to produce, to be able to compete with a listing on a large marketplace, it's absolutely phenomenal. So I think the industry has evolved very, very rapidly. I think the technology the cost of the technology has gone down rapidly, and the ease of use for especially small merchants and medium-sized merchants has really evolved. And for an industry, like I said, which was pen and paper, to now being able to do demand planning predictably, to be able to create better content, better images at a fraction of the cost. You don't need to go to a studio and pay someone 10,000 rupees to book the studio for the day and then top of it pay for a model, pay for props. I think it's making it more accessible. E-commerce has changed in what we've seen in the last 5 to 6 years. And with customer expectations continually increasing, right? Today, especially grocery and pharmacy, we want it in 15 to 20 days. We're no longer willing to wait next day for grocery and pharmacy. It's become a de facto, at least in major cities where you have quick commerce players available. We're seeing those trends now come into e-commerce as well, where 3 days has now kind of become the outlying point where someone is willing to wait. 5 days used to be that magic figure 2 years ago. Now it's about 3 days that if a customer sees on a platform that a delivery is going to take longer than 3 days, there's a high chance they'll shift to another platform where they can get that delivery in that time period. So with customer expectations changing, the only way this can be solved, I think infrastructure is improving, absolutely. Things will get quicker. But in the short term, it is about using technology and data to be able to match customer expectations with the reality of the physical infrastructure that we have.
Thank you so much, Akshay, for that, very comprehensive, I would say, explanation in terms of, one is, of course, how SMBs and smaller retailers are leveraging technology, right, to shore up their marketplaces and their offerings to customers. And, of course, companies like Shiprocket who are investing as well into building up that backbone for them to reach to these markets. And it's very heartening for me to hear about how you are riding all the investment that is happening in infrastructure building here in the country to actually actually, ensure that customers continue to lower their expectations in terms of the 5 days to 3 days to maybe same day or next day deliveries. Now, this is a question that I had not shared with you earlier, but in the conference, I've been hearing quite a lot from investors in terms of, they are looking at working capital management. And many of them also want to look at more of B2B sort of focus area when they're looking at, fresher investments in some of these companies. And now, on the other side, I see, when I talk to customers and companies in this space, there's always a problem of working capital, and there's a problem of returns handling, right? So what the investors are seeking, there are some structural problems, that companies have to deal with when it comes to really managing their working capital better. So what are you doing as a fulfillment service provider to solve the problem of working capital management and managing returns much more intelligently, so to speak?
Absolutely. So I'll give you an example of the most complex case of returns management. Shiprocket also has a platform called Shiprocket X where we do cross-border deliveries. Now, if you think about managing returns domestically, think about how you would manage returns if you're shipping from New Delhi to New York and the customer wants to return that item, because firstly, there's a high amount of duty that has to be paid if the item has to be brought back to the country. And so for most people, what they end up doing when they're shipping cross-border is at the time of a return, they end up destroying the inventory because it is just not cost effective to be able to bring it back. And that's a total write-off for the merchant, right? And it's the worst case in terms of working capital. So what we've been able to do is we've been able to create, again, with our partners overseas, right now in the US, we're launching in Dubai as well for the GCC. We've been able to create our own warehouse management system and OMS, which we've had domestically for some time, to be able to ensure that every item that gets returned in whichever country is stored locally in that country. And the next time an order for that item comes, we're able to ship it from that country. So it also helps with inventory planning to a large degree, because slowly you build out inventory of certain products in key markets. We also offer forward deployment. I'm giving you the most extreme example, which is cross-border, right? Because that's the most complex supply chain that you can think of. We're able to use data to predict for our sellers that out of the 100 SKUs that you have, these are the 8 or 10 SKUs that are high demand, high velocity. Let's move these in a B2B transaction to a warehouse overseas, store it there, so that then you have a 2-day promise to a local customer in the US versus an 8 to 10-day promise from India. And that, again, helps a huge amount with inventory planning, helps reduce the cost burden of logistics. It goes from about 10 to 12% of the transaction to 5 to 7%, just with this simple change. And that's how you're able to kind of refine it further. And I think when we talk about fintech, we talk about access to capital. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that SMEs face. So as a platform, that's the next frontier for us. Using data of e-commerce transactions and of SME capital adequacy
to be able to fund financing. That. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very innovative area. Lots of thank you so much again, Akshay. I know we're running out of time, and I want to give and I want to hear from Naman as well. Naman, when you spoke about how you are really the intelligence behind some of the super apps that we see that are in the market, where you are providing the hyperlocal intelligence that is necessary to power the value proposition of some of these super apps. So I just wanted to understand a little bit from you. And also if you can talk about how you are leveraging the ONDC digital infrastructure to also, again, service these physical retail chains better.
So I'll also give some history to ONDC and how we went on ONDC, right? So I'll go back to pre-COVID because there's history about how we started home delivery as well. So we were doing very well. I'd say Feb 2020, March 2020 was the best months in terms of revenue that we had seen. And we had the best number of users, etc. Of course, at that time, what we were focused on is driving discovery that leads to footfall and sales conversion for offline retailers. Right? That was our business. Come March 20, COVID, everything was shut down, right? Everything came to a standstill. So we had no business, right, being out there. So, but we realized that merchants still wanted to do business. Customers were still discovering online and were looking for ways in which they could get things delivered to their home. So within, I'd say, around 2.5, 3 months of COVID hitting, we actually launched a home delivery product, which means you could come to magicpin, not only discover the SKU, which is a food item like a momo or a biryani or a croissant, but you could actually then click on a button and get that delivered to your home within 30 minutes. So the whole infrastructure, technology was all set up, and using our data, which is very high on personalization and recommendation, we were able to start moving our business upwards, right? And it didn't get easy even in 2021, where offline was literally shut. But we came out of that phase. We raised capital at the end of 21, $60 million round. 22 was resurgence of offline, and we were back in both our online and offline business. Now, interestingly, in 2023, coming to your question, was ONDC came about. And let me give you like a couple of minutes on what ONDC was doing. So ONDC is trying to democratize commerce, just like UPI had done for payments, right? What that means is that ONDC was trying to bring a large number of customers as well as retailers online, such that they were able to get orders. So think of like what UPI did, right? Your nearby chaiwala is now on, can accept a digital payment through UPI, which is what ONDC aspires to do. Any grocery store, any pharmacy store, any food store. And then there are mobility and other solutions that they're building that allows for democratization of commerce. Why should it go to only specific users? Why should it go to only specific merchants? Everyone should have access to that. So what ONDC did was they kind of disaggregated different players in the industry and said that, and let me take an example, right? Let's say Paytm became a buyer app, which means a user could go to Paytm, order a McDonald's burger on the Paytm app. Once that order is received, Paytm sends it to magicpin, which is, let's say, the buyer app in this case. Magicpin would send that order to McDonald's store and also let Shiprocket or Dunzo or Rapido know that you should go and pick up the order in 15 minutes, right? And that order would get picked up by Dunzo or Shadowfax and would get delivered to the customer, right? So a lot of that disaggregation of what was being done by, let's say, one player in the past has been now done by multiple players in that ecosystem, which allows for multiple players to now focus on specific things they are good at. So now what Paytm is good at is demand generation, right? They've got millions of users. They need to give access to those users, these merchants, and they'd start making money on the back of that, right? We had all of these merchants who we had onboarded for 5 years, and we could showcase them to Paytm and the other buyer apps. So that led to a lot of demand, and I'd say when we joined them in March 23, there were 100 orders a day. Today, it's more than 100,000 orders a day is what ONDC is pulling off, right? And that is growing across categories. The part that you mentioned around buyer apps, right? So there are large buyer apps in that ecosystem like Tata, who's just joined with their Tata New app. There is Ola, there is Paytm. Because we've been doing food delivery now for many years, and we understand how to show the user interface and build the entire recommendation engine, personalization, how to customize the menu, how to show it to the user, how does search work, discovery work. Now, Tata New didn't need to spend or build their technology or build a fixed cost tech team to have that entire experience in place. They used we became the tech service provider in this case, and have started to provide that personalized recommendation engine, the whole menu discovery process, the search process, the order management process, payment system, all of that is being provided by us, and the whole order is now fulfilled in that ecosystem using the tech service that we are providing.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Naman. I do believe that your story, especially how you shared about how you pivoted very quickly when COVID hit, and then how you saw this opportunity in the disaggregation that's happening with ONDC. I think it's a story of finding that opportunity even in adversity. And I think that has been the story for all three of you, right? Since we're running out of time, I would like all of you to just summarize top 3 mantras, you can call it, messages, to successfully navigate this startup to scale up journey. We'll start with you, Rahul, and then...
So I think one thing is very important is that resilience. And I think we've experienced that. So I think going forward, I think will be required in a lot of, I think from a lot of different kinds of companies. We're seeing that in fintech. We're seeing that in gaming. So it's part of the adulting process. I think that's very important. I think The next one, which is going to be extremely important, is that the business model innovation that India saw is kind of come to maturity. Now really the tech innovation is needed so that you can offer that awesome experience to the customers, and that's the expectation from the users, and I think that cannot be diluted going forward. And the third and the most important thing, which I think is also the buzzword, is compliance and regulations. So if you are under-invested in that, I would encourage people to invest in resources, systems, technology to be able to deal with that at scale, because the tech commerce platforms are not like small platforms. And for example, for us, there are millions of players who are playing concurrently. It cannot be done manually. So I think that becomes important as a mantra for sustainable growth going forward.
So I'd say overall, be paranoid about the outcome. Be paranoid about survival. Adapt and make changes to your business model as required. Don't believe that the world is changing. Believe that there are others in the ecosystem who will come and solve the problem if there's a profit pool that you have sitting on. So be paranoid about the outcome. Second, I'd say find ways to experiment and fail, maybe do ways in which operate in a way that things are non-scalable to start with, and then go after building systems and processes that can scale, right? Don't look for the right answer in the first go. Experiment, do non-scalable things. That's how you can continue to scale. And third, very cliched of course, but I'd say cash is king. Manage growth and profitability. Don't go after either or at any point of time, right? Cash is critical. We, even today, right, and we've been building this for 9 years, every morning we discuss about cash, how much was spent the previous day, even today, what's the cash balance. It's super critical to manage that, and we've been doing that for now 5 years. Once we realize it's critical, we've now been doing that every day for 5 years. So very important to ensure that cash is king and you understand how cash is being spent for the right reasons in the business.
Very quickly, I think the top 3 learnings for me have been build the right team. It's all about the team at the end of the day. The product changes, it evolves. The people are the real heart of the company that get to your end outcome. Have positive unit economics. It's great when startups say we're out to change the world, we want to create value, but it's important that you also learn how to capture value, because creating value that no one is willing to pay for at the end of the day is not going to keep you going for a very long time. And I think the third thing is match the capital or the investors that you get on board if you're a startup that wants to get investors with your overall outcomes, because matching capital to business outcomes is really, really important. Very seldom businesses reach their peak in 2 to 3 years. It's 12 to 13 year cycles where a business kind of gets to the product market fit that they want. And most funds have a 5 to 7 year fund life. So it's very important to make sure that you get the right kind of capital and the right kind of investors, because they're also part of the first point, which is your team.
Thank you so much, Akshay, Naman, and Rahul, for sharing your experiences and being here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was Naman, Rahul, and thanks Sudakshina for hosting this. And I'd love to have a small token of appreciation from TiE.